Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad, Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya, Shruta Shruta Shri Srimad Vangay Sesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantaraj srimadbhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. It's 51. That's weird. It's Palam Brahmani Sannyasa. Yeah. Okay. So this morning we are reading from Canto 4 entitled Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 22. Prithu Maharaj is meeting with the Kumaras, and we're on text 51. And apparently, the scribe, he wrote the wrong verse. Yeah, 4:22:51. Yes. So, I don't know. I guess a few devotees have phones or... Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Canto 4, Chapter 22, Prithu Maharaj is meeting with the Kumaras, and we're on text 51. Palam Brahmani Sanyasya Nirvisanga Samahitaha Karmadhyaksham Chamanvana Atmanam Prakrite Padam Palam Brahmani Sanyasya Nirvisanga Samahitaha Karmadhyaksham Chamanvana Atmanam Prakrite Padam Palam Brahmani Sanyasya Nirvasanga Samahita Karmadaksham Chamanvana Atmavan Prakate Param Okay, word by word. Palam, result. Brahmani, in the absolute truth. Sanyasya, giving up. Nirvisangaha, without being contaminated. Samahitaha, completely dedicated. Karma, activity. Adhyaksham, superintendent. Cha, and manvanaha, always thinking of. Atmanam, the supersoul. Prakrite, of material nature. Param, transcendental. Maharaj Prithu completely dedicated himself to be an eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, transcendental to material nature. Consequently, all the fruits of his activities were dedicated to the Lord. And he always thought of himself as the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the proprietor of everything. Purport. The life and dedication of Maharaj Prithu in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead serve as a good example of Karma Yoga. The term Karma Yoga is often used in Bhagavad Gita, and herein Maharaj Prithu is giving a practical example of what Karma Yoga actually is. The first requirement for the proper execution of Karma Yoga is given herein. Palam Brahmani Sanyasya, or Vinyasya. One must give the fruits of his activities to the Supreme Brahman, Para-Brahman Krishna. By doing so, one actually situates himself in the renounced order of life, sannyas. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 2, giving up the fruits of one's activities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is called sannyas. Kam yanam karmanam nyasam sannyasam kavayo viduhu sarvakarma palam tyagam prahus tyagam vichakshanaha. To give up the results of all activities is called renunciation, tyaga, by the wise. And that state is called the renounced order of life, sannyas, by great learned men. Although he was living as a householder, Prithu Maharaj was actually in the renounced order of life, sannyas. This will be clear in the following verses. The word nirvasangaha, uncontaminated, is very significant because Maharaj Prithu was not attached to the results of his activities. In this material world, a person is always thinking of the proprietorship of everything he accumulates or works for. When the fruits of one's activities are rendered to the service of the Lord, one is actually practicing karma yoga. Anyone can practice karma yoga, but it is especially easy for the householder who can install the deity of the Lord in the home and worship him according to the methods of bhakti yoga. This method includes 9 items: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshipping the deity, praying, carrying out orders, serving Krishna as friend, and sacrificing everything for him. Shravanam kirtanam vishnu smaranam padasevanam archanam vananam dasyam sakyam atma nivedanam. Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 5, Text 23. These methods of karma yoga and bhakti yoga are being broadcast all over the world by the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Anyone can learn these methods simply by following the examples of the members of the society. In one's home or in a temple, the deity is considered the proprietor of everything, and everyone is considered the deity's eternal servant. The Lord is transcendental, for he is not part of this material creation. The words prakrite param are used in this verse because everything within this material world is created by the external material energy of the Lord. But the Lord himself is not a creation of this material energy. The Lord is the supreme superintendent of all material creations, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 10. Maya dakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetuna nenukonteya jagadvipar vivartate. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all the moving and unmoving beings, and by its rule this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. All material changes and material progress taking place by the wonderful interaction of matter are under the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Events in the material world are not taking place blindly. If one always remains a servant of Krishna and engages everything in his service, one is accepted as a Jivan Mukta, a liberated soul, even during his lifetime within the material world. Generally, liberation takes place after one gives up this body, but one who lives according to the example of Prithu Maharaj is liberated even in this lifetime. In Krishna consciousness, the results of one's activities depend on the will of the Supreme Person. Indeed, in all cases, the result is not dependent on one's own personal dexterity, but is completely dependent on the will of the Supreme. This is the real significance of Palam Brahmani Sannyasa. Yeah. A soul dedicated to the service of the Lord should never think of himself as the personal proprietor or the superintendent. A dedicated devotee should persecute his work according to the rules and regulations described in devotional service. The results of his activities are completely dependent on the supreme will of the Lord. Om Gyanativarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshulanmalitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukam Karitiva Chalam Pangam Langa Tegidim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shigurun Diritaram Vansha Kapadribishta Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanibyo Vaishnavebyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhupada Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, read the translation again. Maharaj Prithu completely dedicated himself to be an eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, transcendental to material nature. Consequently, all the fruits of his activities were dedicated to the Lord, and he always thought of himself as the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the proprietor of everything. So in Bhagavad Gita, there is what Prabhupada said, a peace formula. And that's Bhoktadam Yagatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridim Sarvabhutanam Gyatva Shantam Richati. So Krishna is saying that one who understands or knows me to be the proprietor of everything, the enjoyer of all sacrifices, the best friend of all living entities, they are able to experience peace. And people who don't understand this or don't realize this or don't fully grasp this, then yeah, they can't have peace. Because they a lot of the times are trying to themselves you could say take that position to some degree or another, the position of supreme enjoyer or friend or proprietor, just like what is all the welfare work about? I mean, of course, welfare work you could say is pious, it's good, right? It's not evil. But a lot of the times welfare workers get into a mood or into a mode that, hey, you know, I'm the best friend here. I'm helping everybody, right? Which ultimately Krishna, he's the only best friend. He's the only one who could really help ultimately. And people who are directly or could say very close to Krishna could help as well. So you have the best friend and proprietor. I mean, it's very difficult. Practically everyone in this world are thinking, right, like the Bhagavatam says, in terms of I and mine, which I am this body, right, and everything in relation to this body is mine. So, whereas we see that devotees, okay, they also have bodies, right? Devotees, huh? Yeah, generally devotees have bodies. I guess there's sometimes ghost devotees without bodies, physical bodies. But they have bodies, but they're not thinking, I am this body. They're thinking, I'm not this body. They know I'm not this body. And therefore they're not thinking that, okay, everything in relation to this body is mine. Because they understood it's not mine. It's just a temporary... It's just temporarily, you could say, maybe in my possession, maybe not, right? In the care of. So it's not that we're anti-things or anti-body, but just we're into understanding the, you could say, true purpose of the body and the true purpose of things, which is to understand that, first of all, I'm not the body. And second is that things in relation to this body are just meant to be used in Krishna service. So whatever that may be, a car, a house, money, fame, right? Apparently, devotees say that Bhakti Tirtha Swami, when he passed away some time ago, but apparently he would always try to, whenever there was a news reporter or somebody where he could get some publicity, he would make sure he was there, and he'd make sure to get in the picture and make sure he was there. And devotees were wondering, Maharaj, why maybe someone asked him, why you doing it? He said, well, I'm trying to use this to broadcast Krishna's glory. It's not that I'm just trying to, get in the picture for myself, but I want to get in the picture so I could preach. I'm trying to preach to all these people. So, just like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, back in Kolkata in his time, the temple they built was absolutely amazing. Bagh Bazaar. It's still there, and it's still amazing. But it's like a marble mansion practically. Very beautiful, very ornate. It's like this temple room. The outside of the temple is all like this, very colorful, very very artistic. And I went there maybe 2 years ago, and I was just thinking that, wow, imagine this, whatever, I don't know, 100 years ago or something. It was just like mind, wow, it was amazing, even now. So, but he was doing this not for his own enjoyment or the enjoyment of his disciples or something like that. He was doing it for preaching. It will attract people, they'll come to the temple, come take darshan of Krishna. So whether it's being a friend or, having a body or having things, to understand what's really going on is important. So there's friend, proprietor, enjoyer. We're not the proprietor, we're not the ultimate friend, and our business is to introduce people to Krishna, who is their friend, who can solve their problems. My spiritual master, one time, he said that he was chanting by a beach one time, taking japa walk and chanting, sitting there chanting, and then all of a sudden he started, looking at the scene. It was Southern California, so it was very sunny, and there's surfers out there, and people walking their dogs, and these dolphins, right? And then there was what are those pelicans? Pelicans, right? They swoop down really fast and they try to grab their lunch from the ocean, fish. So he was looking at all these different entities, and he was starting to think, and not only just think about how they were suffering. Like he said that, okay, birds are designed, you could say, by Krishna to be able to, swoop down from a very high level and hit the ocean, and but you could say it's suffering. Hitting the ocean and you're looking for the fish, it's suffering. And he was saying the surfers and everyone, so he started feeling everybody's suffering. And he said it started to become like really intense, like too much. He started really, sometimes you could have these, kind of like, you could say that. He started a little bit producing some anxiety. You could imagine if you're able to feel everybody's suffering, how much, just a few people, how that would affect you. So he was feeling that, and then all of a sudden a little ladybug, came and landed right on his hand. But then he started feeling the suffering of the ladybug too. Because generally you think of ladybug, oh, so cute, and when you're a little kid, oh, it's auspicious, good luck, and all that. He started feeling the suffering of the ladybug, and then, so then he was chanting, and then but then he started having thoughts. He said, and he explained that, well, it's true, all these people are suffering, all these entities are suffering, but the fact is, ultimately I can't help them. But what I could do is I could introduce them to Krishna. And then once I introduce them to Krishna, Krishna could help them, help solve their problems, suffering, right? Because suffering means practically to, turn away from Krishna, turn away from God. Yes, I'm sure he did. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Yeah, I'm sure he did. Chanted Hare Krishna to the ladybug. So, friend, proprietor, and then enjoyer. So as living entities, obviously we have a enjoying propensity, right? Just as Krishna does. We're part and parcel of Krishna. Mamaya vangsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. So we're part and parcel of Krishna. So Krishna has an inclination to enjoy. What is Krishna doing? That's all he's doing. He's just enjoying. He's not doing anything else. Like one devotee, one of Prabhupada's German god brothers went to India. He went to all the different temples, demigod temples, this temple, that temple. And then he was looking for God. And then he saw the demigods, and so many of them have swords and weapons and different things. They're working, right? Working towards something. And then he went to a Krishna temple. Radha Krishna was standing there. And Krishna was just playing a flute. And then he understood, okay, this is God. Because all the other demigods are working for something, we're working for someone, working towards something, whereas Krishna is just enjoying, right? It's not really work to play a flute, really. So that's what Krishna's about. He's, right, reservoir of pleasure. He's a reservoir of pleasure, the reservoir of pleasure. So naturally, as being part and parcels of Krishna, we also want to enjoy, right? But we can't be the supreme enjoyers. Krishna's the supreme enjoyer. So our enjoyment is in connecting ourselves and connecting others with Krishna. That's our enjoyment as living entities. That's our means of happiness. And the faster one could get into that mood, and this is the mood that Prithu Maharaj is in. He's in the mood of a servant, eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and understanding that Krishna is the proprietor of everything. Then he's able to experience that bliss, the bliss of Krishna consciousness. And the problem comes when we try to separately enjoy from Krishna, because it's just by nature that's not how it's set up. It doesn't work. In here it's mentioned that Prithu Maharaj, he is described, he's a householder, but because of his mood, because of his dedication to Krishna, it says he's just as good as a sannyasi. Prabhupada would write that sometimes to his disciples, that no need to take sannyas. You're already a sannyasi because you're dedicating your whole life to Krishna. So that's what's important within a devotee's life, to dedicate their fruits, to dedicate everything to Krishna. A life dedicated to Krishna. And Prabhupada would say that many times. He'd say, oh, you have dedicated so many lives to the material energy, right? You've dedicated so many lives to this, to that, to this cause, to that cause, to so many different missions, you could say. One life, the mission was to free India from the British rule. One life was to remove the democratic population from the earth. No, I'm just joking. I don't know. That's a Republican, right? Some people. One life is to, I don't know, save the wells. One life is to do this. One life is to do that. One life is, maybe many lives is dedicated to sense gratification. So anyways, there's so many things that we could dedicate our lives to. So Srila Prabhupada would just say, you've already dedicated so many lives, so just dedicate this one life to Krishna. That's what he would say. And we're able to do that by, there's a method. There's a method to, I won't say the madness, because it's not madness, but there's a method to sanity as well. And the method to sanity is that hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshiping the deity, praying, carrying out the orders, serving Krishna as a friend and sacrificing everything for him. So the 9 processes of devotional service given by Prahlad Maharaj. And we see that what the living entity is struggling with is that, oh, do I really want to serve Krishna? Or do I just want to serve something else or someone else? That's the struggle. And people, they carry out these 9 forms of devotional service with other living entities, actually. Like last night, I was talking with someone, we were at somebody's house, kirtan, and somebody's house. And I was talking with a few people there, and one lady who was there, Indian lady, I asked her, she's probably in her, late 30s, early 40s, something like that, but I was asking her about who did you grow up worshiping? Because in India, everybody's worshiping someone, generally. So many gurus, so many gods, right? So I said, who did you grow up worshiping? And she said, well, I'm from South India, so a lot of times we worship Ganesh and Kartikeya. There's a lot of Shiva worship down in India. And then she said, we also worship our forefathers. And she named some personality, which I wasn't familiar with, forefather who was supposed to protect or something of it. So, and then I asked her, okay, what about Krishna? Do you worship Krishna? And she said, yeah, I have Balagopal, Krishna on my altar, my shrine. And I said, okay. And I was trying to encourage her, maybe you should look more into Krishna. You should try to get more into worshiping Krishna. And then I asked her, so what about your husband? Because the husband wasn't there, he was in India. So I said, what about the husband? Who's your husband's deity? And then she smiles and she laughs. She goes, oh, it's me, And then she's just laughing, and she goes, no, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. But anyways, I don't want to, pry into their personal life, whether that's true, if she's the deity. But you could say in some cases, and some people, it's said like that, it's understood. That's what they're doing. They're worshiping their spouse, their whatever, as the deity. This is a deity. I am hearing about them. I'm remembering them. I'm serving them. I'm worshiping them practically. I'm carrying out their orders. I'm sacrificing everything for them. It's like deity worship. And Prabhupada actually said in the 11th canto, actually one of our acharyas said in the 11th, I think in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he said in the purport that a materialistic man who's married thinks that his wife is the reservoir of pleasure. In other words, who's the reservoir of pleasure? Krishna. Krishna is the reservoir of pleasure, right? He's the source of all happiness. So someone, in the lap of Maya, an illusion, they're thinking, oh, my wife, she's the source of happiness, all the happiness, right? So this deity worship's going on. Or like nowadays, people, they're forgetting about the churches and the temples and the mosques and the synagogues, and it's being replaced by the fitness centers. Now, whatever, we're not anti-fitness. I mean, if people want to, do cardiovascular, they want to, go on all the machines and work out their legs and arms and, whatever. It's, we're not against that. As members of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, that's fine. It's good to be healthy. Actually, it's very important. Prabhupada would always say, at the end of his letters, I hope this meets you in good health. Why? Because good health, if you don't have good health, you may want to preach, you may want to spread Krishna consciousness, you may want to engage in Krishna service, but because you're unhealthy, you can't. You're laying there on your back, right? Unhealthy, just can't do anything. So that's why, should take care of our health, especially because in the future, in our older ages, we want to be healthy. Dravida Prabhu is very healthy, good example. 72 years old. 72 years old. He's not laying on his back. He's, jumping in kirtan, doing so many things, right? But if we're not careful, we could be unhealthy body. So we're not against that. But people, they're replacing, that's the problem, they're replacing churches, temples, mosques, synagogues with fitness centers. They're not, it's not like an addition, but they're replacing it with that. And they're worshiping their own body or the bodies of others as the deities, right? Like some devotees would bring up the point, you know, of people worshiping themselves as the deities, and they get up and whatever, they're washing their face or decorating their face or decorating their body, just like we do with the deities every morning, right? We do our deity worship, which is quite elaborate if you really think about it, all the turbans and all the dresses and necklaces and everything. So it's being advised that, okay, we don't do that. It's being advised that with all that energy, we take that energy, you know, that, yeah, that decoration energy, and we what is it? Dovetail it towards Krishna, right? We use that for Krishna, that energy. And then there's, methods of deity worship, Prabhupada saying for the householders, and for people in general, very important. Deity worship is one of the 5 most potent forms of devotional service. Although Prabhupada said to one devotee in Mayapur who was trying to put together a deity worship book, Prabhupada said, he said, oh, keep it simple. The method for this age is chanting the holy names of Krishna. That's the method. Harinama, Harinama, Eva Kevalam, right? So deity worship is there, but we're meant to dress the deities and then chant Hare Krishna in front of them. That's what they like the best, right? They like when we chant Hare Krishna in front of them. Or else, practically, it's incomplete, the deity worship. So deity worship also entails chanting Hare Krishna in front of them. Dancing in front of them, right? For the pleasure of the deity. So this is what Prithu Maharaj is teaching us. He's teaching us whatever our situation is, we could become, internally we could be sannyasins, we dedicate everything to Krishna. And to be in that mood of eternal servant, blissful servant of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and understand that all of the results of our activities are completely dependent on the will of the supreme will of Krishna. So we try to do so many things in devotional service, and hopefully we can do many good things in devotional service, right? We want to do good things for Krishna. We want to distribute millions of books, trillions of books, right? We want to go on so many harinams, we want to read so many books, engage in as many kirtans as possible, do so many things, right? Cook for Krishna. But the success of those activities depends on Krishna. So we can remember that as well. All right, does anybody have any comments or questions? Okay, does someone have the bhakta mic? Bhakta mic.
Just a note on that deity worship book. I was involved with preparing that deity worship book. And actually, they decided to make, there's 2 volumes to it. I'm not sure if the second volume is as printed as often as the first volume, but there was an understanding that there's a need to do the simple version for the basic minimum that you have to do in a Hare Krishna temple, ISKCON temple. But there's also, as time goes on, and even at that time, there was some devotees who really wanted to get into it and had the time and the facility to do it, even more. And so there was like a whole expanded book with more mantras and more, things.
Mudras.
Yeah, I think like the deity standard in Mayapur, Vrindavan is, more elaborate, So if there's that desire, to really get into it, dedicate your life to it, and you have the people, and you have the Lakshmi, then there's facility for more elaborate worship. But you're right that the kirtan is a key element that has to go on.
Just don't forget the kirtan. You could go as elaborate as you want. You could spend 5 hours in the morning puja and everything. Just try not to forget the kirtan, right? That's the heart of the devotee movement, Sankirtan movement. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? He asked the 6 Goswamis to establish temples and deities and write books. But they were very much engaged in japa, chanting, and also kirtan. So that's important as well. So, does anybody have any other questions? Yes, Tapas Kundu, one of our tech men here.
So there are a lot of philosophers, and they call themselves guru, and they're.
You know what Prabhupada said about that? Sorry, 1 second. He said, whatever Krishna says is good. Oh, excuse me. And if these other, he said the problem is solved. Whatever Krishna says is good, right? And any other thing that's not doesn't agree with that, it's bad. And then Prabhupada said, boss, finish. So. Bas, yeah. So, these philosophers, some philosophers, actually there's some philosophies out there that some of the elements of Krishna consciousness are there in those philosophies. So Prabhupada would accept those. But the elements that were against it or were just wrong, Prabhupada would say, oh, we don't agree with that. Anyways, you could go on with your...
So, there are many people, they do the philanthropical activities like feeding people or planting tree.
Yes.
Or doing something for environment.
Yes.
So they say, according to them, they are not doing for themselves, so they are doing for others.
Yes.
So what kind of karmic result they get out of that? Is it a nishkam karma, sakam karma, or other thing?
Well, I remember hearing about, there was one man, and he said he was in India, and he said that, one devotee said he was in India, and he was walking in India, and he saw a man throwing flour all over the floor, like wheat flour, all over the ground. And then this devotee, he was kind of confused. Oh, what's going on here? Why is this person doing this? So he went up to him and he said, what are you doing? Why are you throwing all this wheat flour all over the floor, all over the ground, outside? And then the man said, oh, well, I've taken a vow that I would feed, 5,000 living entities every day. So I'm putting the flour on the ground, all the ants will come, right, and eat the flour. So, there's so many, you could say, pious people out there, good people, and they want to do good things. But, if it's not for Krishna, then one doesn't get spiritual credits, one just gets pious credits. And, but those pious credits, they could also... generally we see that pious people, they have a leaning towards the mode of goodness. And if someone has a leaning towards the mode of goodness, a lot of the times they're more receptive to the message of Krishna consciousness, because their heart isn't completely deformed and demented by selfishness and the lower modes of material nature and So that could be valuable, those pious activities. If a pious person comes in contact with a good devotee or a pure devotee, they have their heart tends to melt a little easier. Like Prabhupada said that, there's the mode of, you're trying to light a fire. If you're trying to light a fire, there's wet grass, right? If you light it, it's very difficult. That's the mode of ignorance. And then there's grass, which a little easier to light, which is the mode of passion. And then there's dry grass. What do you call that? Straw. And if you light straw, it immediately burns. So mode of goodness is like that. So these activities that people do, the pious activities, are not spiritual, but if these persons come in contact with devotees, it may be easier for them to take to it.
one particular guru in India, he said that if you are serving the jivas, like you are serving the Shiva.
Shiva?
So, yeah. Like all the jivas are Shivas. So
all the jivas are Shivas.
So if you are serving them, that you are serving God.
Okay.
So what do you think about it?
Am I being recorded here? I feel like I'm being recorded. There's a camera there? I have to be careful what I say, right? What do I think about that? The Shivas are Jivas? Well, yeah, we don't agree with that. Oh, excuse me, the Jivas are Shivas? Yeah, the Shivas are Jivas. No, the Jivas are Shivas. Yeah, we don't agree with that. That's a similar thing to like Daridra Narayan.
Yeah, like
Poor Narayan.
Serving the people, they think that by feeding people, poor people are serving God. As good as, why do you want to go to temple? You can serve poor people, feed the poor people.
Yeah, this Daridra Narayan, Daridra poor, and then Narayan, but Narayan's not poor, right? Narayan has Lakshmi. Lakshmi is well, right? So it's a misconception that people, it's a Mayavadi impersonalistic misconception that has developed within India, and it's very unfortunate. And Prabhupada would really rail against that in his books and his lectures, how it was just, it doesn't, make any sense. Yes. Hare Krishna.
Haribo. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes,
Such a nice presentation.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, at the same time, we see, especially in India, how some of our ISKCON temples, they do feed the people, and they do distribute prasadam, or things like that. That it might seem philanthropic if we see in the mundane way of view. So maybe you can explain how actually that is completely different than the mundane philanthropic way of doing things.
Yeah. Well, Prabhupada would say, okay, what's the use of saving the dress of a drowning man? So, in other words, a soul is drowning in the ocean of material existence, and then you just save his coat. So, in other words, you're just taking care of the body. So, yeah, we're interested in taking care of both, most importantly, the soul. And but obviously, taking care of the body's there as well. And I mean, Purshottam Distribution within ISKCON is there, and Prabhupada emphasized that, and he liked that. And Prabhupada would want people to take prasad so they could give up their, bad habits of eating meat. He said, oh, if you feed them this, they'll immediately give up the habits, right? Pakora or whatever it is. So, and it helps people become pious, and it really transforms their consciousness. So, whether it's in India or here or there or throughout the world, devotees engage in that. They cook, they offer prasad, and they distribute it. I mean, Prabhupada emphasized that. But it's not that it shouldn't, turn into like a mundane thing, in the sense that we're not just interested in feeding people, but we're interested in feeding people prasadam, food offered to Krishna, and also in educating them spiritually. Devotees have to be careful with it, because it's kind of like a fine line that if it's crossed, it kind of becomes a little tricky. I mean, it's in so many ways, you could say in some ways it's maybe difficult for some people to understand, but I mean, I was hearing this, like there was a big disaster that happened in South India when Srila Prabhupada was around, and this man, he was really pushing Prabhupada to come down and, food relief and all that. And saying, join us, and, send all your men down and everything. And Prabhupada just didn't go. And he just, sent a letter back and said, we're not going, we're not going, we're not going. And I thought that was interesting. Prabhupada would do that. I mean, in so many cases, Prabhupada he didn't want people to get mixed up like we're all about holy and solely welfare work, a spiritual movement. And like one particular case, there was a man, he said, I'm teaching people to chant Hare Krishna, he was telling Prabhupada, and you're teaching the people to chant Hare Krishna. But this man was teaching people to chant Hare Krishna in such a way like for their material benefit, for their health and for everything like that, like wealth, health, stuff like that. So then Prabhupada, he asked Prabhupada, we should join, and Prabhupada said no. He said, this is against our principle. He said, we are servants of Krishna. We're not engaging Krishna in our service. So yeah, prasad distribution is there, and I don't know all the ins and outs behind every, operation in ISKCON, what exactly is going on. But yeah, that's the idea, that we want to offer it with love and devotion, distribute it with love and devotion to people, it's prasad, and then, yeah, educate them spiritually. So, yeah. All right. Jai. Oh, Prakash. Okay. Okay. One last.
Haribol. So I was thinking about what is the best thing to give in charity or to help someone, and I think I read somewhere, or I don't know.
Shastra Dan. The gift of scripture.
Yeah. So if you feed a person, it will help him for one meal, that meal, and maybe if you teach him a job or teach him something, how to do something, it will maybe help him for that one life.
Yes.
But if you give pure love for God or the scriptures, it will help him for all his life. And I think that's the highest thing to give in charity or to help someone or.
Yes.
Yes.
That's true. Jai. All right. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai.